Hey everybody, Scott Lanningham back with episode 2 of SLRadio. That's a good name, I guess as good as any. Had a good time with you all the other night and decided why not keep doing this, you know. There's a lot of great people to talk to and good music to play, and I just want to check in with everybody regularly and see how you all are doing. I see a few people have joined. Can somebody let me know if you can hear me okay and if you can hear the music? Can you hear the tunes? I see Mike said hi up in Calgary, Canada. Hey, Mike. Yeah, somebody just give me a confirmation that you can hear the music okay. I think it's coming through. Which is, that's some more Tres Musicos from the Elephant Room. This time, Sean Giddings was sitting in with Mitch and I, and Sean was playing bass with his left hand on a Moog and playing piano with his right hand. And I love this recording, and I want to let it just roll for a second. Check out Mitch and listen to Sean, what he does with one hand soloing. It's pretty amazing. And then we got a great guest tonight. We'll be back in just a second with that. So let's listen for a second. right. Little Tres Musicos for you. Sean Giddings on keys, bass in the left hand, piano in the right hand, Mitch Watkins on guitar. I'm playing a little bit of drums, a little bit of conga. Thank you all for joining tonight. And my special guest is the illustrious Paul McKee. Some of you, I'm sure, know Paul. Let me turn his mic on. Let's see. Where are you, Paul? Unmute.
Hey, buddy.
Hey. Say hi. Say hi to the world.
Hi, world. So good to be here with you.
Everybody,
That's a beautiful cut, man.
Everybody hear Paul okay? Let me know in the comment section. What time is it? Your mountain time, right, Paul?
Yep.
Okay, there. I found your volume control. That's a little better. Man, I haven't seen you. It's been. Has it been years? I think it has been years.
A long time. It's been a whole head of hair ago.
Yeah.
Well,
and half a head of hair for you, right?
Yeah.
So you're in Boulder, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What part of the town? Where are you at there?
I live in Broomfield, which is it's like a suburb of Denver, basically. And
so it's closer to Denver than Boulder, or are they all run together now?
It's a little closer to Boulder, but it's kind of in between Denver and Boulder.
And is it springtime there now, or is it still chilly?
Well, it's snowing right now, so but that goes into April. Out here, and it'll be like 70 tomorrow. So it's kind of yo-yo weather right now, but it's getting there. I'm hearing birds outside and things are blooming, and kind of it's nice to see that right now,
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's terrific. And we need that. We need some of that better weather right now, and the optimism of spring, right?
Yeah. Not kidding.
Hey, before we jump into Paul and I reminiscing a bit and sharing some of his great playing and great music that he's been up to in recent years, I did want to share. I have a treat for you. I found something, and one of my cousins is listening, so he's going to get a kick out of this. But I was looking on the web and some time ago, and I found an old recording of my grandfather on my mother's side. He was a concert, kind of a theater organist, not a classical organist so much, though he could do that, but he was back in the day when they would, play in theaters, and they would have rhythm symphonies, and they would accompany movies and all that kind of stuff. And I found a little clip on YouTube of it, and I wanted to play it for everybody. So let me do that real quick. Check this out.
The valve is seen in one of its most modern forms in the electric organ. And here at the console is that brilliant organist and popular broadcaster, Harold Ramsey.
I think that was my family swimming in the background, by the way. Go, Harold. Check this out. Watch this right here. All right. Stop sharing. Go back to Paul. What do you think?
What year was that?
Gosh, I don't know. I think that must have been in the 30s or the 40s, maybe. It looks pretty far back there.
I dig the Art Deco organ, man.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
That's awesome.
And the white shoes and the white suit and the white organ. And yeah, amazing. They really had to put a lot into it back then. Anyway, I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
That's awesome.
I'd always heard about him growing up, and I met him a couple of times. He lived in Calgary, Alberta, up where one of our listeners is, Mike. But I'd never gotten to hear him play. Certainly not play the organ. I heard him play the piano once, but to find that on the on YouTube was amazing. So anyway, let's talk about you, man. We met in, what was it, 81 maybe, or 82?
81. Yep, 81, I think, is when I started grad school.
Here in Austin at University of Texas, and you were, I was a junior undergrad, and you were doing master's work, right?
Yep. Yeah, I was, I think, Rick Lawn's first TA, teaching assistant at UT.
Man, and Austin was such a different world then. A lot smaller weather, about 350 to 400,000 people, something like that. And
it was definitely weirder.
And there was just as much music, and it paid the same it does now. Right?
That's right.
Something like that is true. And we met at UT and quickly became friends and went out and started meeting and sitting in with and becoming friends with some of the icons of the Austin jazz scene, you know, Susie Stern and Rich Harney, and you know, Beto and the Fairlanes and Passenger with Mitch Watkins, Steve Metter, Paul Ostermeyer, Roscoe Beck. Roscoe had moved to L.A. by that time, so it was really just a quartet, and Bill Ginn was still playing. And where was it? What was the place we used to go see him on Fridays and Saturdays?
Copus,
which became Z Tejas, I think. It's like a little white Victorian house that's next to that restaurant. But wasn't that a great scene?
Well, I mean, it was such a, that was like the first place I lived after growing up in Iowa. That's the first place I moved to, was Austin. And it was such a great music community. You know, I mean, it was very close knit. People would, come out all the time to hear all the various groups, to hear Beto or hear Passenger, or hear all the, the various groups playing. And it was, the players, everybody was so cool and so open to, having us come and sit in and do stuff. And I mean, it was just I was in Austin a total of probably about 6 years in the 80s. And some of my most favorite and vivid memories are from those years in Austin, all the wonderful people that I got to meet and am still friends with.
Oh yeah. Beverly Spicer, maybe she'll join.
Yeah.
She's on Facebook sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Mordecai's watching right now. How about Mike? Want to send a hello to Mike? That's cool. Thank you,
I saw
Mike.
Mike briefly in New Orleans for the Gen convention because John Mills Group was playing. And they were, I saw them briefly. But yeah, I hadn't seen Mike in ages.
Paul Ostermeyer too. I just saw Paul's name up there, and Paul English. Gosh, what a great crowd! A lot of great musicians joining. I wish we could fit everybody into the conversation, but we'll save each of you for new shows. We'll have more shows with more people with more memories.
Can you do like a group hang on this in this format?
You can. I have no idea what's going to happen to all of everybody talking over each other, but
Right. Well, not tonight.
No. Hey, do you remember Do you remember you were sitting in with the guys, with the passenger guys at Copus, and I was coming on Fridays a lot with you and listening to them, and I was playing with Susie Stern, Rich, Paul Glass, who is, I think, has also tuned in tonight, and Horacio Cola Rodriguez was playing bass a lot, and Cola was gone one night, and Mitch subbed on bass, and Mitch is a great bass player too, and he was usually playing bass when we saw him on those Fridays and Saturdays at Copus, wasn't he? I mean, he did not as much guitar then. He was the bass player.
I think of Mitch first as a bassist when I just first got to know him.
Yeah.
I think, an awesome bassist.
Not everybody knows that about him, that he swings like it's nobody's business on the bass. But so he showed up that night and playing at Jorge's on 6th Street, upstairs where all the frat parties were, and it was so loud you couldn't really hear yourself play. And I was so excited that he was there that I just, it looks like the stream has maybe dropped for a second. That's a bummer. Well, maybe it'll come back. We should keep going. But I know that there was one night when, I was saying one night when he sat in on bass, and I was so excited I jumped up and started playing with him. He was playing some tune that he'd written that we'd heard on Fridays and Saturdays, and I think it was Sublime in Time or something. So I jumped up on the kit and started playing with him as he was warming up to come up for the second set. And, he's kind of like, who's this kid, right? And he invites me to come and sit in with Passenger, and you guys, you were playing with him on Fridays and Saturdays, and I wish Steve Metter was on listening. He might be, for all I know. But do you remember what he said to me when I walked in? And Mitch was like, hey, man, come and play. And I came in on a break, and they'd just taken a break, and Steve walks up to the bar, and he says, so you're the kid, huh? Said, well, you better be ready. You're starting the next set, and it better be good. That was the trial by fire for me. But it was great. It was fun playing with those guys.
And we should mention Mel Winters, too. He was a big part of that.
Oh, yeah, Mel. Great trumpet player.
At the right time. And I think, when I think about it, you were probably the first and foremost person that got me on that gig. Now, do you know how that worked? Do you remember?
No, I don't. How did that work?
Because you knew some of the North Texas guys, and you knew Chris Sider. And you introduced me to Chris Sider.
And was Chris playing with Toshiko Akiyoshi's band then, or who was he playing with?
I think so, but he had been subbing a little on Woody's band with like John Fetchuk moved up to the lead chair, and Chris went out for a minute with the band, and he gave John my name, and because we had just met, and when he was up in Denton, and we were in Austin, and we had hung out a little bit. So had I not come to Austin for grad school and had that connection, I never would have got that gig. So thanks, man.
You're so welcome, man. I had no idea. I didn't know that had anything to do with it. That's cool.
Well, it's just one of those things too that I remember what was on between semesters at school, and I got called, and I sent in a cassette tape of some stuff I threw together of my playing, and got the call to join the band. And I remember there was no rehearsal or anything. I joined the band on a gig. It was in Atlanta at Peachtree Plaza. I remember it and I just showed up. They showed me the book a little bit and said, it's one of those things where you're looking at the charts and they go, play this, but don't play this. We never play this. But then you jump over here and it's like, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm so screwed.
Wow.
And, it was a terrifying experience. Woody comes out and kicks off the band. But I mean, it was terrifying and exhilarating. And, it was like one of the best things I ever got to do. But that was the whole Austin connection kind of made that happen. So I want to make sure I mention that.
Well, you were so great for that band. And I mean, you were playing so beautifully in town. And I know that experience. And you played with them. You still go out with the band, the post Woody Thundering Herd. You still are connected with the band, right? Or have been?
They aren't doing anything anymore. It's been a while, but after Woody passed in '87, and then the band continued. Frank Tiberi, the lead tenor player, took over fronting the band, and there were a bunch of gigs. And then around 2000, we somebody kind of started aggressively booking the band again, and we did a bunch of festivals. We'd go to Europe in the summer, and it was like all the guys from the previous, versions of the band would get together and play, and we do these little trips. And it's very sporadic now. They don't really do much anything. Frank Tiberi, he's like in his mid-90s now and still playing.
I didn't know he was that old, man. Well, we were
listening. Thought he'd be the one that survived this long.
we were listening to him in the 70s when we were in high school, or you were in college.
He started in the late 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, and Dennis Dotson was in that band at one point for a number of years. That great band with Alan Vizzuti and Jim Pugh was in that band for a while, right? And
Joe Lovano.
Yeah, Jeff Hamilton was the drummer, wasn't he? I think
so.
I
think on I think it was like that 40th anniversary. Yeah, Jeff was on there, but I think for the 40th anniversary album, I think it was what's his name? I can't think of it right now. I'll think of it.
Lyle Mays played on some of that Carnegie Hall concert. No, he didn't play on it. He wrote it. He wrote that arrangement of Penny Arcade, and Pat Coyle was playing piano.
Lyle Mays. That's funny because that chart on Penny Arcade he had some stuff from, I think it was like one of his, that record he did in 74, 75 at North Texas, the Lyle Mays record.
Yeah. With
FM and Foosball Festival and all those great charts on there. Amazing record that he just wrote the whole thing. But he stole some from himself a little bit for some of the stuff on Penny Arcade. If you ever go back and listen, I think it was from Foosball Festival. He took some stuff and put it on the chart. Anyway.
Wow. I know I want to apologize to the audience. We're having a lot of problem with the stream tonight, and I suspect that I have 3 or 4 kids all gaming or watching movies on Netflix all at the same time. I should go down the hall and tell them to stop. I hate that you're missing some of this stuff because Paul's so much fun to talk to, and he's got so many great stories. And you know what we should do, Paul? Why don't I stick on a piece of music right now and let's let it play, and I'll run down the hall and see if I can get people to just cut me some slack for the next half hour or 45 minutes so we can make sure that people hear this stuff. So what were we going to start with? We're going to run with Higher Ground first. You want to set this up?
This is a fairly recent thing I did, and there's a group I play with here called the Colorado Jazz Repertory Orchestra, and they did a project, did a recording of all arrangements of Stevie Wonder tunes. So we kind of pick the tunes we want to do. And one of my favorite, probably my favorite Stevie record is Intervisions. That's the one I grew up with in the 70s, and I always liked this tune, Higher Ground. So we're trying to do some creative versions of these tunes. So this is mine. Definitely is kind of a little bit in the Thad Jones end of the spectrum. So
I love that. I love it. Well, let me roll it here, and I'll be back in just 30 seconds. Let it play, and I'm going to go tell the kids that they have to go outside and pull weeds or something, and I'll be right back, okay? It's okay. I don't think your voice will make it over the music, so I'll ask you at the end. I'm sorry. Yeah. Great band. Holy cow. Nice, man. Great arrangement. The part of it that I got to hear. That's beautiful. So once again, the band it's Colorado Jazz Repertory Orchestra, and who's in it? What's it made up of again? I know you talked about
local musicians. The guys that you heard, this local. Some students from some of the schools in the area and some professionals, and the guys you heard blow on this one, it was Eric Gunnison on piano, he's one of the mainstays, one of the main guys on piano in Denver, and been around a long time and always just a great guy to have on the gig, and Mike Abbott was the guitarist. Veterans of the scene, it's a fun band. It was one thing, I wish we had time to play the whole CD, because there are so many great writers in the area here. And that's another thing, you know, all the, you know, I like to do the writing and arranging stuff. And there are so many guys around here who are so good at it, and it's inspiring to be around, you know, some of the folks. It makes me want to, you know, do more stuff, because it's a good scene.
Well, you know, if this bandwidth problem finally starts to loosen up a little bit, then maybe we will play the rest of it, you know, and just go on until in the wee small hours of the morning when people are in bed and we finally have some bandwidth. And you know,
Is it getting any better?
Well, it comes and goes. It says it's good right now, and then it chokes a little bit. And only 2 people were gaming, and then 2 people were watching Netflix. So that's enough to destroy my pipeline. But hey, you know, they're all penned up in the house. They got to have something to do, right? Let's see. Paul Ostermeyer, what did he say? Didn't Buffalo Girl become Copus, then Z Tejas? Yeah. So we're going back to that earlier story about when we went out to see Passenger. But Copus had been the Buffalo Grill, and then it ended up as Z Tejas. And I don't even know if it's anything right now. It may just be a private party place. But anyway, so we just heard a cut, a PaulMcKee arrangement of Higher Ground from the Colorado Jazz Repertory Orchestra, and the album's called Overjoyed, the music of Stevie Wonder, right?
Yep.
Is that something people can get on like Spotify or Amazon or something?
I think, you know, they have a website. I think it's let me look at the web. I don't know. It's like coloradojazz.com or something like that. I don't have that in front of me here, but it's available online, I believe. I don't know if it's distributed. It's coloradojazz.org. That's the website. So
okay. Well, let's play another one, and then we'll pause and talk a little bit and actually maybe reminisce a little bit about life at 45th and Bull Creek and what we and the insane thing we used to do with a telephone answering machine. But the second one that we were going to play is Back Home, right?
Yeah, this is actually the faculty in the jazz studies department at CU Boulder. We did it's been probably 3 or 4 years ago, we did a recording. And so this features all the folks from the jazz studies, including the full-timers as well as some of the adjuncts. And this is actually a tune. This is a tune of mine, original. I wrote a melody over the Donna Lee changes, which is actually Back Home in Indiana originally, right?
Cool, yeah.
And so that's why I call it Back Home. And so this is a little tune I wrote for us called Back Home.
All right. PaulMcKee with the, again, it's the Thompson Jazz Faculty, University of Boulder, yep. University of Colorado Boulder.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, here we go. That was terrific. I love that. Sorry, I started to play another one, which we could easily do. Oh, that was great, Paul. It was beautiful. I don't have...
Well, I was just going to say, those are just like some of the local guys that teach at the program, like Paul Romaine on drums. You probably might have heard of him. A guy named Bijou Barbosa on bass. Jeff Jenkins on piano.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him, yeah.
And Dave Corbis on guitar. The tenor player is also the head of the jazz studies program, named John Gunther. He didn't blow on this one. And then Brad Good on trumpet.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a nice gig because it's a Boulder. The school is right at the foot of the mountains. It's a beautiful location.
Gorgeous, yeah.
And we all get along, which is a really nice part of all of that. It's a really close group, and we have a great time when we get together to play, which isn't often enough, unfortunately.
Oh, that's terrific. Man, those settings are more special with each passing year, right? We find these special times and special groupings of people in a special place, and it's a certain kind of magic, isn't it? It's not easily reproduced.
Yeah, I mean, I love it here. I've been here. This is my 6th year here, and one of the things I love about it is that you have the mountains, you have nature, you have a beautiful setting, but you also have a really nice, thriving urban area in Denver, which there's some clubs, there's a lot of players, and so you have kind of the best of both worlds. Of course, at the moment, not much going on, but it's a beautiful place and a really great scene. I really like it.
Yeah.
It'll be the last stop for me, definitely.
Oh, well, you've been there how long now?
This is about 6 years.
Yeah, that's a good time and a good place, and I hope you get to stay there as long as you want. Who knows coming out of all of this what life is going to look like, but I think we've got to keep optimistic and hope that we can, as I was thinking about the other night, retain what we love the most about what life was like before this, and maybe fix some of the stuff that we didn't like so much. That would be nice, wouldn't it? If we could move forward with kind of a fresh perspective on what really matters and what we value, and give that more impetus.
I know that one thing in all the tough times, in my life that I've experienced, one of the things that have always pulled me through is maintaining a sense of humor and music. Those are the things that always saved me.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of that, that's a beautiful segue into Paul and I. Paul and I first became roommates with Hank Hemsoth, who is, I noticed that he's joined and he's listening. Hank Hemsoth, great pianist, teacher himself, instructor at Texas State. Is it still called Texas State? I can't. It's down in San Marcos. Anyway, and great pianist, and traveled with Christopher Cross when he first came out with that first big multi-Grammy winning record, and Hank traveled the world with him. He had just gotten off of the road with Christopher Cross when you and I met him, and you and he and I, and was it Miles?
Miles initially.
Miles initially, Miles Braffett.
And then Ralph Alessi later.
And then Ralph Alessi. Both of those guys live in New York now, don't they?
Yeah.
So, lots of love and prayers go out to them. Hope those guys are doing okay in the epicenter of this challenge. But two great talents. Ralph went on to play with a lot of people, Ravi Coltrane and others, and has a school up there, a jazz school. And Miles became higher up with BMG, didn't he? Or one of the big record companies, or maybe the company that owns all of what's left of the record labels now, maybe. Or Sony. Yeah, Sony BMG, right? But great guys. But we had a ball in that house. And after a while, we that house broke up, and then Paul and I and my brother Doug rented a house over at 45th and Bull Creek, which is a pretty nice, desirable area of town now, and people pay a lot for those houses. I think we paid $450 a month or $500.
Oh yeah,
a month?
It was ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, it was very cheap. It didn't have air conditioning. You remember that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
No air conditioning. Box fans in the windows. Very little furniture. A whole lot of roaches. Lot of roaches. Do you remember the Orkin lady you remember when the Orkin lady was terrified of the roaches, or were you on the road with Woody at that point?
I think I was. Yeah, I wasn't there for the Orkin.
Yeah, she came in. We finally got her to come in and try to figure out where all these roaches were, and she found a nest in a cabinet above the refrigerator that we had never opened.
Oh
and
my God.
There was a box or something in there, and she stuck the hose in there with the spray, and she turned it on, and Doug and I were in the other room, and we heard her kind of shriek, and we went in there, and it looked like a waterfall of roaches coming out of that cabinet, and she actually left the house. And we thought, when you scare the Orkin person, you got a bad problem,
Oh,
So anyway, it was during those years when Paul and I started messing around with, and my brother Doug, with our first phone machine, you know, with the cassette inside, and we would create these strange recordings of songs and just scenes, you know, and we would leave these on our phone machine, and sometimes we wouldn't even tell people who we were. So I'm surprised we ever got any messages, you know.
Well, it was, you know, incredibly low tech back then.
Oh, God,
you know,
yeah.
we're just dubbing from cassette to cassette back and forth and adding layers onto it. And,
Yeah.
like I remember doing these things and just being in tears, just cracking ourselves up.
That's part of what made it so funny was the low techness of it. Why don't we play one? You want to play one?
What you gonna play?
How about Baby Baby? What do you
Okay.
think? So we just started singing, and we just made lyrics up, and we talked silly, and then we overdubbed ourselves, and this is an example of what we're talking about. Don't you want to check? You don't know why I love you, baby. What do you say? My baby and I were walking along the way. I don't know why you are the sky. My favorite line. Can you imagine calling our house and getting this message and wanting to hire one of us for a gig? We probably lost dozens of gigs with this stuff, right? Almost over. There's another good line. You cook the chicken. Well, that'll put hair on your chest. Man.
I think it's important to add that we were not drunk or stoned when we did. We were completely just high on life. On life. Absolutely.
I think it was the result of no air conditioning in the middle of the summer. I think that's probably what was going on with this. There were so many of them. There were answering machine skits that we did. Were you in the Niagara Falls one? I can't remember if I was thinking about playing that one. I couldn't remember if your voice was in that one or not. See if you remember this one.
Jack Upshaw, Niagara Falls for Safety Net Hairspray with a young woman out here, beautiful young woman, standing in the middle of the waves with her hair all sprayed down. It's not moving a bit, splashing around the face and neck, but not bothering her hair at all. The waves are getting stronger, though. Looks like the cameraman's drifting off, and the truck. The young woman's hair is starting to go apart. We're in trouble now, folks. Looks like the wind. Oh, it was all just a dream.
See, there was the beep. Beep.
That was after I left. I noticed that the technology was remarkably higher, starting with this one.
You think?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I wanted to play the Looney Tune retake that we did. What did we call that one?
That one.
Right.
Yeah.
God, I thought it was in here. I can't remember what I called it. It doesn't seem to be showing up. Well, we can hear one more and chicken. The chicken. This was Beverly Spicer's favorite. Talk about chicken. Okay, that'd be quite enough of that for one night. You know, you hear 3 and then your brain starts to explode. It's like...
I forgot we had the vibes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. There was vibes in the background, and I think maybe you were playing vibes, and I was playing brushes on a suitcase. And do you remember the evening when we had a guitar, we had the vibes, we had a Rhodes piano, and you and Doug and I kept switching between instruments, and it was all freeform for like 2 hours of continuous recording. It was insane.
I remember that. I had my Rhodes there, and I remember that. Yeah, that was crazy.
We should have put that out. Oh, okay. This is the last one I'll play, and then we'll go back to serious music. The Rhodes. The Rhodes is featured in... Do you remember when my brother Doug would sneak in, and he would play that Rhodes sometimes, and he would just be dinkling around and making up stuff, right? And this is bad, but one time I recorded it from around the corner, and then I made a phone machine message out of it like it was a Ronco album offering, and
yes,
so,
I remember
that? So here it is.
452-8370 Bull Creek Records presents the Doug Lanningham Collection. This legendary keyboard artist now brings his special brand of music into the privacy of your own living room. Remember this fantastic hit? The Doug Lanningham Collection, 26 albums for $1.39.
I always like to keep the beep at the end,
Yeah, that gives it context.
Oh, he was mad at me for years after that, although he laughed about it. He's a good sport. And of course, he was my background singing partner on Dogfish Song, which came years later, and which I will someday play on one of these episodes. But anyway, those were fun times, man, and that's kind of kept you and I in touch over the years, and we have our own kind of special brand of the way we talk to each other, even if we're texting or sending a message through Facebook Messenger. It's kind of a strange shorthand. How else would you describe it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a combination of all the pop culture things that we experienced together, and movies we went to, and we pulled things out of that, and it was really not interesting to anyone except you and I, probably. So
right, I'm embarrassed to admit that one of the things that we came up with actually has become immortalized as the name of my ASCAP publishing company. It was when we went to see the Stephen King film Creepshow, right?
Yeah.
And do you remember what happened after we saw Creepshow? When we were driving home, how do you describe what happened?
You better try. I'm not even sure how to. I remember Creepshow, but
in that strange way we talked back then, we were talking about the show, and then we started shortening our words, and we'd talk in these strange little... I think it must have come out of the fact that Steve Martin was doing the Sistrunk or Brothers or whatever, the crazy guys, the Wild and Crazy Guys, right? Some of it was maybe inspired by that, but Creepshow became Creeshow, and I don't know where the fa-ha became fa-ha, on the end. But what was that? What was that part?
That was like... The fa was short for the F-bomb.
right.
And then it was so like something would happen in the movie that would startle you, and you go
the
fa, so it became a little 4-syllable thing that we would just scream at each other every now and then.
And we laughed about that silly little vignette, or not even a vignette. We laughed about that funky made up word and the way we would say it to each other so much for so long that it became, for the few years, it became embedded in my head. And then when I'm going to give a name to my ASCAP publishing entity, of all the things I could have called it, including Scott Lanningham Music, I choose Creeshow Faha Music.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and I've got a piece of paper over here that's supposed to make it possible for me to change the name to something that makes sense, but I keep putting it off for some reason, probably because I don't get any money from ASCAP, so it doesn't come up as a point of contention. But I know the few times that I've talked to ASCAP, and the lady will always say, or the guy or whoever I'm talking to will always say, Crescofehe music. What is that? And then I'll have to try to explain it, and then they'll go, yeah, God. Whatever, you know. So pretty insane. Anyway, I want to play another one or two of yours. You know, I know things are getting long here, but there's still some people hanging out, so maybe we'll keep going for a little bit if you're up for it. But I don't. But I want to allow you to, you know, go out on your late night jog whenever it is that I see people in my neighborhood running at, you know, midnight, and I'm thinking this is because they're stir crazy and they can't stand it anymore being in their houses. I'm not running any farther than from here to the front door. That's it for me. Okay, so no big whoop. Tell me about that.
Well, this is a group that consists of basically the jazz faculty from University of Northern Colorado, which would be, you know, Jim White, drummer, Jim White.
Yeah.
Okay. And Eric Applegate on bass, and Dana Landry, who runs the jazz program up there, on piano, and Steve Kowalczyk on guitar. And then to that rhythm section, they added me and Clay Jenkins on trumpet, and Don Alico, tenor player from Middle Tennessee. So we kind of became the house band for some of the events, like at the summer camp up at UNC and also at the festival. And we would play the after-hour session and stuff. So we did a record, and this is one of the tunes I wrote for it.
Oh, terrific! So this is by Paul, and it's called No Big Whoop.
No Big Whoop.
No Big Whoop, and the band is called
7 on 7.
All right, here you go. Yeah, man. Ooh, nice. That's beautiful, man. How do you talk to young trombonists about tone? I mean, that's one of the things about you that has always stood out to me is you've got this beautiful buttery kind of sound, and you're a very versatile player. But I mean, your sound is so identifiable. And who are the guys that influence you in that regard, and how do you talk about that with players?
Well, actually, I recently had a post on Facebook about that. I talk about, to me, the two most singular important things about playing any instrument, really in any style of music, and not just jazz, are what I say is sound and time, right? And so everything else, rhythm, harmony, melody, are all dependent on sound and time being in place. And so obviously, the things you do to work on your sound as far as practicing, and then the sum of all the influences of all the people you like to listen to. And, time is something you work on so you can coordinate hooking up with the rhythm section and playing with good time. Those are things that if they're not happening in another player that I'm listening to, I get distracted and I end up not really focusing on what they're trying to say because those other things get in the way quickly.
Right.
And I think that if you think about any of your favorite players on any instrument, probably one of the first things that you would talk about as far as their attributes is their sound. Like think about like someone like Clark Terry, or Miles, or Philly Joe, or anybody that you listen to, you can probably identify in 2 or 3 bars because of their sound.
Yeah.
So that to me is probably the most important thing. And as I get older too, it's more of a challenge especially on a brass instrument to maintain the quality control that you want to have on that stuff.
Yeah, it's something that was important to you from early stages of your development as a player, though. I mean, you were conscious of that. You really were focusing on sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was something that somebody mentioned to me early on, like a mentor, and said this is an important thing, and it always stuck with me. And I think about the players I love to listen to. It's like I listen to a lot of the typical guys, like J.J. Johnson, and Irby Green was a big influence. And of course, when I discovered Carl Fontana, that was it for me.
Right,
as far
sure.
as one of my favorite players. And then the other thing is just listening to not just trombone players, but getting the concept of sound from like listening to Miles play a ballad with a harmon mutant or something like that. The expressiveness of that sound. Or I think about all the people that identify quickly by sound. Someone like Mitch. I think has a great sound.
Mitch Watkins, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's something that's always been important, and I bug my students about it constantly. Everybody gets so obsessed with playing lots of notes and stuff, but people often, forget about the importance of playing with a good sound.
Indeed. By the way, you got a hello from Mark Fisher. Sounds
hey,
great,
Mark.
man. Mark
from Chicago.
Yeah, cool. And Hank Hemsoth, who's been listening, we talked about him earlier. He asked who was on keys on that last recording. I think you mentioned it before.
What we just listened to?
Yeah.
It was Dana Landry from University of Northern Colorado. He's the head of the Jazz Studies program up there.
You know, every time I hear something new with players that I haven't heard of, or I've heard of them but I haven't heard them play, mostly so many that I haven't heard of, and you hear this really high level of musicianship, and you realize it's such a cliche, I know, but the universal language of music thing, and you realize how important it is to so many people, and why it's so important outside of just a professional pursuit for money or for a career, that people play music. You know, because I think all of us have something inside of us to express musically, and you know, we should do it. I mean, it's a very healthy thing.
Well, it's hard now because all these musicians are isolated, and obviously the financial hardships are significant.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But also just it's so weird to not be with people. You know, like you watch. I was remarking that we were watching something on TV and you see all these people like clustered, and it's like weird seeing that right now. And not like a movie or something, you know, it wasn't Florida, but it was actually,
yeah, right.
You see people doing stuff together. Wow, it's so weird to not be able to do that right now and play. You know, you can do stuff, you know, people are sharing videos and all this stuff on Facebook and other places, and it's cool, but it's just not like being in the room playing with somebody.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Yeah.
And how long is it going to be before we can do that again? You
know? I know. And what's it going to be like when we begin again? Are we going to be in a place where we have enough confidence in our safety and each other's safety that we can let ourselves go and truly be present? Or are we going to be guarded, and how is that going to affect everything, our communication, our music, and all of that, you know? I mean, hopefully.
Well, I'm trying to feel optimistic that when we get through this and we can start going out and being around each other again, that, you know, that people are going to be so ready to get out of their houses and maybe go do stuff that I think that I'm hopeful and optimistic that the music community will rally and things will come back, hopefully quickly. You know, it's just so unnatural for us to exist in this way, to be separated like this. Truly.
And, you know, the economic fallout, I mean, I don't want to get political, there's no reason to, I don't even desire that, but just the reality of that will become obvious later on, the aftermath of this, and what the economic fallout is what will that look like for people that are playing music. I wonder if it will have, maybe on the biggest levels, you know, the touring artists, that's really disrupted their life and all of the attendant industry around it. But people are going to be very hungry to get back into a bar and hear a great band, you know, maybe more than ever, I would think. You know, we think about, during the Depression, that music was a very important part of helping people make it through some tough times. And I wonder if we may have a resurgence of people appreciating local on a new level after this, you know, hopefully. Would be nice.
Yeah. I one thing that is getting me through this too is that I live in Broomfield. I live, I rent a house with my girlfriend Angie and her son Sam, and Angie and I have been going out for 12 years. And Sam, when we started dating, Sam was just a little kid, and he has, through no pressure from me, he has turned into this monster jazz trombone player and writer. And he's going to the University of Miami. Well, he was at the University of Miami. He came home for spring break and never went back.
Wow.
But we've been getting to hang out, and he has just blossomed into this amazing musician and writer. And so we I'm down in my little jazz cave right now, and we do a lot of playing together. We'll put on some backing tracks and we'll play together. So that's really the closest thing I have to actual human interaction right now. But I feel really lucky that we get to hang out and do music stuff together.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I should remind anybody that's tuning in that doesn't know what we're doing here. This is Paul McKee truly, to me, one of the great trombonists of our age. You know, he's played with many people. I just know Woody Herman, really, other than of all the other work you've done since then. You know, he had a great solo record a number of years back. What was the name of it? I forgot what you called it.
Gallery.
Gallery.
1995, yeah.
Which was beautiful and a lot of great players on it. Did you record that when you were in Chicago? Is that when that was recorded? And wasn't Carl Fontana on that?
Yeah, I did it in several different sessions, and I was able to grab. Carl was in town, and he agreed to come and play. I had met him through being on the road with Woody's band, and that was like, you know, that meeting your greatest hero.
Oh yeah.
Kind of, and then getting to record. I remember standing next to him in the studio. We were playing this tune, and I was thinking, what was I thinking? Like, what am I going to play after he plays? Because he's, you know, it's just this beautiful, you know, beautiful human being.
I bet he loved you. I mean, you are too. You're a beautiful human being. You always have been, and it comes out in your music and just in your spirit, you know. And I'm not.
Well, I feel lucky to, at many points in my life, been in the right place at the right time, and I sure think of my Austin experience as right place at the right time with all the people that, you know, we got to hang out with and we're still friends with. I wish I could get back there more often than I do. I know the last time I was there, it's been a while, but I didn't even recognize it. Like, I flew into Bergstrom. I'm going, wait, what?
I know.
Remember we lived by the old airport, you know, or Cloverleaf. Remember that first house?
Yeah, I remember hearing the planes coming and going. Yeah, you fly in now and you're like, where's Morris Williams Golf Course? We usually almost got hit by golf balls when we were landing. What happened, you know? And it's way south now. It's another place. That was an Air Force base back then. F-4s were still flying out of there when we were in school.
Well, I remember driving south on I-35 and you'd get to like William Cannon, and that was like the edge of town.
Right.
Now it goes all the way to San Marcos.
Oh yeah, it's intense, and the downtown is so different. You know, all the high rises. The tallest building was that one. They built the first one on Congress that was taller than the Capitol when we were living in town in the early '80s. That one that's kind of 3-level pancake. It's white with brown around the top edges. I don't know what building that is. And now that one, you can't even see that one. You know, it's enormous. Hey, let's play another tune, and then you know, maybe we'll start wrapping up, and we've got our closer that we like to play. But tell me about the next tune.
Oh, this is another one, a different recording with the Colorado Jazz Repertory Orchestra, and I did a chart on. I've always liked the tune "With a Song in My Heart," and so I wrote an arrangement of that for this band.
Terrific. Okay. Colorado Jazz Repertory Orchestra, from an album called Invitation, and this is Paul McKee's arrangement of With a Song in My Heart. that's beautiful. I love that.
A great tune. My goal when doing arrangement is just try to not screw up the tune.
Oh. You know, I've loved your arranging since the first time I heard you do any of it back at University of Texas, when you would take, you know, you did one of Mitch's tunes for that first recording we did way back.
Remember, we had so much fun kind of going through the Sublime in Time chart, right?
Yeah, right.
That was so much fun arranging that, because that was one of our favorite tunes that they would play.
Yeah.
When we hear them.
Passenger, right.
Yeah, and I every time I heard that tune, I'd start to, you know, the arranger would say, "Oh, that would make a nice big band chart." And so,
you know, wouldn't it be a great show if I could get Steve and Paul and Mitch and Roscoe on here to talk about those years and that band, and maybe dig up some of the unreleased tracks from those guys and play them? That would be fun.
That's like when I was talking about like getting a group on. I would love to hear like all those guys together having a conversation and playing some of that music. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Help me jump on their case and bug them to do this, you know.
I think they do it. Just figure out the technology, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, we can get more people on this screen. We'll just all be smaller. That's all. You know, I've been loving this so much. It's such a great pleasure visiting with you. I've missed you, and you know, we've stayed in touch when we can over Facebook and things like that, but it's really great to see your face and to spend the evening chatting like this and listening to tunes, and it feels like it was just yesterday we were hanging out together on Bull Creek and 45th, you know.
Well, it's like, you know, you have friends like this, like, you know, you're like somebody that we might not talk for 2 or 3 years, and then we get together and just like we haven't missed a minute, you know.
Right.
Just like that soulmate thing, and you just kind of pick up where you left off. You know,
Amen.
cracking each other up. So, yeah, man. I love you, brother.
I love you too, man. Why don't we take it out with, you know, I played this the other night and people really loved it, and it's a favorite of mine, and it's Tres Musicos, which was Mitch Watt. It still is. I mean, Mitch has got another trio now, but it's still a trio. It just hasn't played in a while. Mitch Watkins on guitar, Chris Marsh on bass, I'm on drums, and we used to play Thursdays at the Elephant Room. It's a different thing now with Mitch and Masumi Jones. Great trio with she and Mitch and Chris Marsh under Mitch's name. But when I was doing it, we would do, he probably still does this, but we used to do this Leonard Cohen tune, If It Be Your Will. And this is from a live recording of that trio. And I thought it'd be a nice way to kind of end these. It's a nice musical prayer of sorts, you know, beautiful tune. And maybe we'll kind of meditate on this and then say goodnight after that. How's that sound? Yeah, love that. That was fun. This was great, man. I really loved hanging with you tonight. Again, thank you so much, PaulMcKee, for being on with me.
Yeah, man. Happy to do it. Thank you for doing this. I think it's a really nice, comforting thing that really is welcome right now. This is, reminiscing and listening to music and having some fun,
Isn't that the truth? That's what I'm getting out of it. And it's really interesting. I think I told you I wanted to do this a couple years ago, and I worked really hard around trying to make it happen, and it wasn't the right time, and had some challenges in my life at the time, and I had to let it go. And I didn't know I'd come back to it, but the other night I was just missing everybody a couple nights ago, and I decided to come on and just play tunes and just talk to people, and in the chat, and you came on, and other friends, and it feels more organic and natural this time. No agenda, just hanging with friends and helping each other feel better through some tough times.
I look forward to more. I think you can do all sorts of cool things with this.
Yeah,
and I think it'll definitely be interesting to watch what's next.
Guess who joined right near the end? Lynn Keller.
Lynn
Keller, man. We played with Lynn back in the early 80s at the University of Texas. She was the bass player in the UT Jazz Orchestra when Paul and I were playing in it, and went on to do wonderful things. She's such a talent, and out in L.A., I think, still.
You think about some of the folks in that band. We had Lynn and Rodney Lee.
Yeah.
And Ralph Alessi, and I mean, there was so many great. Jeff Benedict was in that band.
Yeah, Paul Glass was in that band for about yeah. It was a heck of a cool group. And lasting friendships get made when we're doing that stuff, don't they? They really do.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, my friend, and we'll have to do it again. And sending our love to everybody that's been listening tonight, and we'll be back. Maybe in a couple of days. Who knows? It may get to the point where I need this so often that I'm on every day. We'll see. It depends on how much I can steal bandwidth away from the rest of my family who needs the internet to do their thing, But thank you all for joining and listening, and love you all very much, and we'll see you soon. Night, everybody.